back to the issue of abortion right here in our country. Today, the Supreme Court is going to hear arguments over Mississippi's abortion ban. That kicks in at 15 weeks of pregnancy, and the state is bidding to dismantle the Roe versus Wade landmark court decision.
And here we now have our Washington, D.C. correspondent, Joe St. George. He's joining us live from the nation's capital with an in-depth look at what is being argued. Now, Joe, good morning. How, if at all, could this case impact the one that's being considered by the justices that restricts abortions here in Texas?
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning to you. You know, this is a case out of Mississippi. It involves the state looking to ban abortion at 15 weeks. But really, it goes much bigger than that. This is a case about whether or not states have the authority to pass more abortion restrictive measures than they currently have. It's something that lawmakers in Austin, Texas, certainly Governor Abbott, conservatives in Texas are paying attention to very closely. Remember, the Texas 6 weeks ban is a very unique, nuanced case in the sense that it involves regular citizens suing, enforcing providers. It's a bit legally complicated. This is much more straightforward in that the state of Mississippi is trying to ban abortions at 15 weeks, which is earlier than what the Supreme Court has ever allowed a state to do. But more importantly, the Attorney General of Mississippi is asking the Supreme Court to, quite frankly, overturn Roe v. Wade, the landmark decision from 1973, and give state legislatures like the one in Austin, Texas, the authority to pass more restrictive measures. It's a busy morning here at the Supreme Court. Oral arguments will get underway about 10 a.m. Local time here in D.C. And it's one that has drawn crowds already from both sides of this hot-button controversial issue. By now, people in Texas know the consequences of potentially the Supreme Court making a ruling on this. It could mean women. We've already seen it in Texas. Women from Texas going to more liberal-leaning states, perhaps like a New Mexico or even further north, to receive abortions if they so choose. So, controversial morning, big case, although a ruling is likely not expected for several weeks, probably several months, not until the spring.
You mentioned crowds, Joe. You've got a big one behind you, and they're loud. It looks like they are protesting what's happening today. Can you tell us what happens next for both of these states, Texas and Mississippi?
Yeah, the crowds are, and they're getting louder as the morning progresses, and it's a cold one here in our nation's capital. I think, again, what makes this so different, this case so different, and we learned this previously with the Texas arguments for the Supreme Court, is that when the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away in 2020 and former President Trump was able to appoint his pick to the Supreme Court, Justice Amy Coney Barrett, that really changed the ballgame, and it changed the numbers. And for the first time in a long time, conservatives believe they have the necessary numbers to be victorious and truly make a substantial historic ruling. Now, the number one rule in covering the Supreme Court is don't try to predict what justices will do. We won't try to do that here because oftentimes they can issue very nuanced, very specific rulings. But the whole country will be paying attention to this Mississippi case today, and more importantly, when the Supreme Court ultimately rules on abortion sometime either by the end of this year, by the end of this month, or sometime next year.
All right, Joe, thank you as always for your time today. Go inside and get a little warmth.
Yes, thank you so much for sticking with us. We'll see you again next week. And thank you, our viewers. We're going to be right back.